It was a chilly February morning in Athens, Georgia, one of those still, muted days where the silence felt heavier than usual. Laken Riley, a bright-eyed 22-year-old nursing student at Augusta University's Athens campus, laced up her running shoes and stepped out for her usual jog on the wooded trails near the University of Georgia. She was a creature of habit, dedicated, devout, and deeply loved by her friends and family. At 9:03 a.m., she sent her last text message to her mother. "Good morning. About to go for a run if you're free to talk." It was short and familiar, the kind of message she sent often, one that didn't feel final, but it was. Laken would never return home. When Laken didn't respond follow-ups or show up for appointments later that day, concern quickly turned to dread. Her friends and family began to worry. She wasn't the type to ghost her responsibilities. Campus police were alerted. Hours later, after frantic searching, Laken's body was discovered in a wooded area near Lake Herrick, a tranquil park campus she often jogged through. She had been beaten in the head, struck with a rock multiple times, and asphyxiated. Her lifeless body was left in the brush, discarded like garbage. The brutality of her death shocked not only the Athens community, but soon gripped the entire nation. Who would do this? And why? Within 48 hours, law enforcement had a suspect in custody. 26-year-old Jose Antonio Ibarra, a Venezuelan national who had entered the United States illegally. He was living in Athens with his brother, near the very trails where Laken ran. Surveillance footage, digital breadcrumbs, and forensic evidence began to close the circle around him. UGA Police Sergeant Joshua Epps recalled noticing what looked like scratch marks on Ibarra's arms and wrists when they met him the day after the murder. It didn't take long for investigators to dig deeper. A blood-stained navy blue jacket, discarded in a nearby dumpster, contained both Laken's and Ibarra's DNA. Security footage from the morning of the murder showed a man wearing a similar jacket walking near the trail, and a black Adidas hat seen in the footage later appeared on Ibarra's brother. The smoking gun came from beneath Laken's fingernails. DNA analysis revealed Ibarra's genetic profile, further supported by a Georgia Bureau of Investigation scientist who testified that someone must have been in direct, forceful contact, likely as Laken fought for her life. The case was personal for many. Laken was not just another crime statistic. She was a beloved daughter, sister, friend, and future nurse. A devout Christian, smart, kind, described as the brightest light in any room by her peers. Her roommate, Connolly Huff, gave a heartbreaking statement during sentencing. She had once run beside Laken every day. Now, she couldn't bring herself to jog again, haunted by what happened. "I no longer run every day," she said, choking back tears. "I constantly look over my shoulder, wondering if I am next." Jose Ibarra's trial didn't play out like a courtroom drama, with jury deliberations and gasping revelations. Both the defense and prosecution had agreed to a bench trial, where the verdict would be rendered by a single judge, Athens Clarke County Superior Court Judge H. Patrick Haggard. Over 4 tense days, the courtroom was filled with forensic experts, law enforcement officers, and emotional testimony from friends and family. The defense tried to cast doubt, suggesting that the DNA evidence was inconclusive, that surveillance footage didn't definitively show Ibarra, and even proposed that perhaps Ibarra's brother was the real killer. But these theories fell apart under scrutiny. The judge didn't waver. On May 8, 2024, Jose Ibarra was found guilty on all 10 charges, including malice murder, felony murder, kidnapping with bodily injury, aggravated assault with intent to rape, and tampering with evidence. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Laken's family wept as the verdict was read. Her mother, Allison Phillips, stood before the court with trembling hands and shattered composure. "This monster took away our chances to see Laken graduate from nursing school. He took away our ability to meet our future son-in-law. He destroyed our chances of meeting our grandchildren, and he took my best friend." The room held its breath as her words echoed through courtroom. "He ripped away every beautiful memory we will ever be able to make with her again." Ibarra, throughout the trial, barely reacted. He looked down, expressionless, while his future was sealed with the slam of a gavel. The aftermath of the case reached far beyond Athens. Politicians quickly latched onto the tragedy. Former President Donald Trump used the verdict to argue for tougher border policies, calling on the government to remove these criminals and thugs from our country. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp echoed the sentiment, blaming open border policies for Laken's death. As a direct result of her murder, Georgia passed a new immigration enforcement law requiring local and state law enforcement to verify the immigration status of adults arrested or detained. To supporters, it was a necessary measure. To critics, it was reactionary policy driven by fear. But politics aside, for those who knew Laken, her story was more than a headline. She was a woman with dreams, a healer in training, someone who had made a difference in countless lives. Her story serves as a tragic reminder of the vulnerability women face, even during the most mundane routines. Laken Riley went for a run on a crisp February morning. She never came back. Her final moments were stolen, brutal, and unjust, but her name will not be forgotten. Through courtroom justice, legislative change, and the unwavering voices of those who loved her, Laken's story continues to resonate. Her legacy is not defined by her death, but by the strength of those who demanded justice and the light she brought into the world while she was here. And just like that, a bright life was extinguished on a quiet Georgia trail. A nursing student with a heart for healing, brutally silenced. A killer brought to justice. But even with a conviction, the echoes of that February morning linger. How could a young woman be so vulnerable in broad daylight on a college campus? How did a man with a criminal past slip through the cracks of the immigration system and into her path? Could this tragedy have been prevented? And the most haunting question of all, what was Laken's final thought as she struggled for breath in the woods she once found peaceful? Justice was served. But is justice ever truly enough? Because if someone like Laken Riley, kind, driven, blameless, can be hunted down during a morning run, who's safe?